Okay, I'm going to talk about John Fetterman, Donald Trump, Columbia University, pro-Palestinian supporters, and something that Donald Trump did today to Columbia University to punish them for pro-Palestinian supporters. And so anytime I make a video talking about Israel, the Israeli government, the Israeli military, Palestinians, the Gaza Strip, Hamas, you have to include about a half a dozen disclaimers. Otherwise, you'll get labeled as Islamophobic, anti Semitic, and everything in between. I condemn Hamas. What Hamas did on October 7th was horrific, and it was a terrorist attack. I also condemn the Israeli government and the Israeli military, which is different than condemning Israel itself for its response to those attacks on October 7th. I also want to acknowledge the roughly, 80-year history prior to October 7th of 2023, and how the Israeli government and the Israeli military, which is different than the state of Israel, has treated Palestinian people inside the Gaza Strip and the West Bank during that 80-year history. Suffice to say, the Israeli government and the Israeli military has not treated Palestinian civilians well during those periods of time. And since I mentioned the Israeli state, I also feel compelled to condemn Hezbollah as well for the things that they have done. But recently, in response to some things that Hezbollah did, the Israeli military and the Israeli government basically flattened entire areas of Lebanon, again, killing tens of thousands of civilians. The Israeli military is incredibly good at killing tens of thousands of civilians, but they seem to have really shitty aim when it comes to actually killing members of Hamas. They did do a more refined targeting strategy, I guess, with the whole pagers thing that they did last fall. But I digress. In the months following the October 7th attacks, when by Hamas, which I condemn, again, lest anybody get the wrong idea, there erupted across the country. I mean, it wasn't across the country. It was really on the East Coast and the West Coast at about a half a dozen schools. But they were very elite schools, schools like Columbia in New York City. There were pro-Palestinian protests. And among those protests, there were certain individuals who were saying some really incredibly inflammatory things, like protesting in favor of Hamas, which that's fucked up. So, of course, everyone who supports the Israeli military and the current Israeli government, headed by Bibi Netanyahu, who's still trying desperately to stave off his own criminal trial. People like John Fetterman, for example, Bill Maher, lots of other people, just lumped every single college protester who was protesting in support of Palestinian civilians and labeled them as anti-Semitic terrorists who support Hamas. Which, when you have to do that in response to protests like this, it's an acknowledgement on your part that your position is fucking weak. It's fucking weak. They're college kids, incredibly privileged college kids, but they're college kids. And if you have to label every single one of them as a pro-Hamas anti-Semite, that says more about your argument than it does about theirs. And it says that your argument is fucking weak. Anyway, so to punish Columbia University for allowing those kinds of protests to take place, Donald Trump has canceled $400 million in grants to that school. In swoops progressive Democrat from Pennsylvania, Senator John Fetterman, who said that all those kids who were protesting were assholes. And I support what Donald Trump did today. So Pennsylvania, come get your boy, man. Columbia let anti-Semitism run amok to cater to lunatic fringe and paid provocateurs. Leadership allowed those assholes to take over the campus and terrorize Jewish students. Now Columbia pays for its failure, and I support that. Yes, terrorize Jewish students. Terrorize them. From what I've heard, the Jewish students who were confronted with protesters on America's college campuses had it worse than Palestinian civilians inside the Gaza Strip. That's what I've been told.